In 1982, Coleco published this port of Donkey Kong for the original Atari video computer system. It was met with so-so, middling reviews, to the point that over the years people have speculated that Coleco intentionally tanked this port to make themselves look better. You see, Coleco now had skin in the game. They had recently released ColecoVision, their own platform that was a competitor to Atari and the Intellivision. So, did they intentionally make this bad? Well, we'll talk about it. Hey there, welcome back to Gen X Grown Up. I'm John, and I am a Gen X Grown Up. Thanks for clicking on this video. You know, with such a high-profile port, Donkey Kong, you would think that every single release would be as good as it could be, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I vividly remember getting my copy of Donkey Kong for my 2600. I remember finding it in a catalog, I remember ordering it, I remember the weeks of waiting to get it, and when I finally got it, yes, there was some initial disappointment, but it was still as close as I could get to playing Donkey Kong in my house, so I played the heck out of it. So I would like to plug in this version of Donkey Kong. We're going to play through it and talk about the pros and the cons and whether or not we think that urban rumor that could even have a nugget of truth in it is factual. Let's go.
Here he is, our 2600 Donkey Kong from 1982, and right away there are some things that you might not appreciate if you don't know much about the VCS, but there's a lot of stuff going on here that I think is important to at least give credit where credit is due. For example, I'm going to go ahead and start playing while we do this. Note that Mario actually has three colors. His feet are blue, his jumpsuit is red, and then his face is white, and so they did a good job there. Now when he jumps, he doesn't have three colors. He only has two because individual scan lines can't have multiple colors, but you get the idea. And I should note there's no flickering. Flickering was very common in, like, think of Pac-Man, right? So flickering was crazy, and Gary Kitchen was able to have no flickering in this Donkey Kong. So though you may play it and go, yeah, it's not Donkey Kong, there's a lot of achievement here for a 2600 game. Also note that the background is asymmetrical. There's that the zigzag pattern on the board here, the main board. That's not easy to do on the 2600, but he did it. Now we could also criticize the things that are weird, like the barrels look like Ritz crackers, and Donkey Kong looks like a giant gingerbread man. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't even work here, like those partial ladders don't work at all. And the sounds. You have three sounds. You have buck, 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 the walking. You have the jump or the jump barrel, doodly dee dee, and then there's the go up, finish a level, doodly doodly dee dee, and that's it. Only 2 levels of the 4 included here in Donkey Kong. And I've read interviews with Gary Kitchen, and there were limitations put upon him by Coleco. He wanted to do this in an 8 kilobyte cartridge, but they said, and even though 8K was very common back then, they said, nah, just do a 4K, that's fine. I'm going to try to get the best score I can while I'm playing this. So, you know, given more time and more resources and an 8K cartridge, he's like, yeah, I could have done much more. I could have had all 4 screens there, but is what it is. Now, that could start to lend to the sabotage question in general. Like, okay, if you could have but didn't, does that mean sabotage? Well, maybe, maybe not. We'll talk about that in a second. But there are things, the game is very different here in ways that you might not think about from the original Donkey Kong. Like, for example, these fireballs can only travel on their own row. They don't go up and down the ladders at all. So once you trap one of them, you're good. It can't get back at you. Now, I have seen fireballs jump gaps on later levels, but in general, like these guys are all trapped on the edges, I'm fine to just run on through. And it just goes back and forth to the same level. There's 2 levels over and over. And this level, the Girders level really doesn't get that much more difficult because of the limitations of the 2600. Like, you can't have more than 1 barrel on the same row at the same time. So if there's a barrel on my row, I know that the next barrel is not going to fall from the top level down a ladder. You can't have multiple barrels in a row. There's no double barrel jumps because you simply can't have them together at the same time. So you can plan your game a little better going, well, hey, I know this one isn't going to come down because the one above it is. And now, one really cool feature that not everybody talks about with this game is that it pauses in between each level. So So after you finish a level, your score is up there at the top of the screen. But when you're in a game, that's the bonus for this particular screen. So you only see your score in between levels, and you only see your the countdown on the board when you're playing it. And it actually pauses, like it won't start until you hit jump again. And then it shows how many lives you have in the top corner. And I'm going to try to get as far as I can in this while we're talking. Look, I don't play this every day, but there was a time when I was pretty good at it, so I'm going to do what I can. I'm trying to play it safe and get a decent score because I would really like you to be able to, that's close. I'd like you to be able to see just how aggressive the fireballs get once you get up several levels in. It's almost unfair, and you're just going to die over and over no matter what. But this is a game that epitomizes that a game need not be a good game to be a fun game. And I don't mean that in a bashing this Donkey Kong way. It's objectively not a great Donkey Kong game when you're comparing it to the original. But it's still a game that I have fond memories of, and I remember and love playing just because it was Donkey Kong. Look, that's why that's why people buy the rights to these games, because the name alone invokes a certain amount of happiness, and they know that you're going to buy it and you're going to play it, and they're right. And for the day, look, maybe by today's lens, this is a really rough version of Donkey Kong, but back then, considering what other things we were playing, it wasn't all that bad, really. Now, while I'm playing, I want to remind you that we do have a merch store, and if you would like to support the videos you see here on Gen X Grown Up, there is really no better way than to pick up something for yourself, and also, look, every shirt you buy at genxgrownup.com/merch is going to give us, 50 cents, $1, or whatever, based on what you buy, and you're going to get cool stuff. We have video game stuff, we have Donkey Kong stuff, Atari stuff, all sorts of designs inspired by the things that we love, and that I guess, by association, our viewers love too. It really means a lot to us if you would pop over there and check out our merch store. Maybe consider picking up something for yourself. All right, now, speaking of was this game bad on purpose? Now, I've already talked about it's not a great game, but it's not a bad game per se. But when you look at what ColecoVision could do, this is terrible, and released at the same time. Now, there are a lot of people who argue on both sides of that, but I would just argue it doesn't make financial sense for Coleco to sabotage their ports for other platforms. Because if you look at 1982, Coleco made $8 million selling game cartridges, but only $2 million of that was for ColecoVision. The rest was for other competing platforms. That's a huge part of their revenue. The quality of this game didn't hurt their bottom line, for one. So it didn't really damage them. But that being said, when you know what your potential earnings are, you're not going to, intentionally make a bad game. And in fact, in the interview that I saw with Gary Kitchen, who wrote this port, he did the best that he could do. And in fact, he spent a lot of time on the things we talked about at the beginning of this video, to make no flickering and to have the uneven background and things like that. He had said, look, they were limiting him to a 4K cartridge, tiny cartridge. And 8K carts were the norm back then, or at least they were becoming pretty common. So certainly Coleco could have spent more money and made this a better game. He even said, given more time in an 8K cartridge, this could have been better and had all 4 levels from the arcade. That'd have been great. So did Coleco, through negligence, allow this to go out at the quality that it is? Well, of course. They released it. Could they have done more? Of course. They could have. But did it make financial sense? I think that's the debate, right? It was good enough. I think if this had been the port for ColecoVision, they'd have said, oh, no. That's our name brand. But even so, if you look at the other things that Coleco put out, I think the problem with Coleco's reputation for the VCS is that so many of their high-profile games, Donkey Kong Jr., Zaxxon, were almost laughably bad, that it gives the impression that they were doing it on purpose, when in fact, I expect they were making financial decisions. Look, hey, a 4K cartridge costs this much, development time costs this much, how much revenue do we expect to make? Should we spend another 6 months and another, double the cost of cartridges to get a little bit better game? You could say maybe not. Maybe that was the right decision. So that's the nugget of truth that's probably in this sabotage story. I don't believe that Coleco or any company would intentionally make something bad just to make themselves look better. Well, okay. I don't think anybody did that back in 1982 with this game. I'm not saying that no company would do that, certainly, but look, there were millions of VCSs out there. They knew that after the first round of sales, they had to operate on word of mouth. And in fact, they did. I remember playing this, take it, show it to your friend, and it's not like as soon as one guy in the neighborhood got it, nobody bought it. It was the best Donkey Kong we had on the Atari, and by golly, we bought it. And we loved it, and we kept playing it. Look at that. See how he got me when I wasn't even on the same side as him. That hitbox is just kind of crazy. I rarely even get the hammers on these levels because... Oh! There, you saw he reversed on me. I'm down to just one life, so I'm probably not going to get too much further. Once you get 4 or 5 cycles in, those fireballs start to just vibrate, and you can never tell when they're going to reverse, and they're always going to be on the level, so you got to be super careful to avoid them. Like that. Now, I like trapping them on the side, but that becomes more and more of a risk the longer you live in this game, because those guys just reverse and reverse and reverse on you. Ugh, over and over, and just good luck. Good luck. So where am I at? I made it about 50,000. I'm probably at about the end of this run. I'm on my last life. Now, this is going to jinx me, but I'll say typically this level doesn't get more difficult. Well, it got more difficult enough, apparently, so... I pulled in 51,000 on a quick casual run on this 2600 Donkey Kong. Not bad. What do you think? Do you think it was intentionally sabotaged by Coleco? If you owned a company, would you like say, no, that don't make a good game because we want to make this other one look better? Make them both look good and make more money. You know, that's the thing. There was no debate that ColecoVision was a more powerful piece of hardware. Nobody was questioning that. And so just because it looked good on one platform, they knew it would look even better on yours. So this is Donkey Kong for the 2600. Maybe not great objectively, but if you love it, and I love it.
I could definitely understand why people here in the 21st century might look at this port of Donkey Kong and objectively say, that's just not good. And I get it. It's certainly not as accurate or as close to the original arcade game as any of us would have liked. However, in the context of video gaming and what it was like having an Atari in the early 80s, this Donkey Kong, whatever the quality, is what we got, and it's now a piece of our childhoods. It's now a part of our history. This is permanently ingrained. This version of Donkey Kong is permanently ingrained somewhere up here in my head because of how much I played it and how much I enjoyed playing it, regardless of its shortcomings. I really enjoy doing these playthrough videos and kind of historical talks on these games. Continue, please, to give me your suggestions for games you would like to see get this treatment here on Gen X Grown Up. Of course, I will throw links over my shoulders to some other games like this I've covered recently. I hope you found something to enjoy in this video, and I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.